Juan here, and today's video is going to be about objection blocking. So last time we covered intro, which is pretty much just getting their attention, right? Giving them that pattern interrupt. All right. So objection blocking, as I mentioned in the past video, is just getting those objections you normally would see and hear at the end of the call eradicated, right? So things like, I don't think Kevin can actually help me, or I need to think about it. And then you ask them why they need to think about it, right? And they're like, I don't feel like Kevin can help me. I don't feel like it's worth how much I'm paying for. Just those kind of things. And, I don't think this, I don't feel that the mentorship is enough for me. Just those weird questions about the course they put on your shoulders because they want to get out of doing this, right? You prevent all of that in this section, right? So this question, this statement is just really giving them giving yourself the permission to ask them questions. You always want to find the permission first. And 100% of the time, 100% of the time they say yes. Okay, if they say no, it's weird. Just hang up the phone. So just say, okay, so do you mind if I find out a bit more about you, where you are now, where you want to be, right? And the reasons behind why you want to get an Amazon business started, just to make sure we have the ability to help, something like that. And then, awesome. So first thing you want to ask is, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being, yes, this is something I need right now, and 1 being, don't call me back, hang up the phone, where do you think you fit? So the reason for this question is kind of, number 1, to loosen up the conversation a bit, because this part normally makes people laugh, especially if you say hang up the phone. Or some people will go, no, definitely not 1. That's like 50% of the time. And another thing is it gets you pretty much an understanding of the situation, right? If you're doing inbounds, you're lucky because Kevin has great leads. Most of the time I get either 9s or 10s, right? 9s or 10s most of the time. Sometimes you get 8s, sometimes you get 7s. Those are mainly the business owners who are naturally skeptical, right? Business owners, they watch out. They're careful about where they put their money, right? So even though something's legit, they still being careful, that kind of thing. So, it gives you pretty much an understanding of where they think, right? They're like, okay, so, I'm just confident about the training. Pretty much that's what this question is. How confident are you about Kevin and Design Ninja Masterclass, right? And this part might be funny, it might be weird, but whatever number they say, you say, why so high? So if they're at a 5, or if they're at a 7, I say, okay, so you're at a 7, why so high? Or, okay, so you're at a 5, why so high? And it makes them laugh, but the reason you ask them why so high is because they start saying good stuff. If you say, oh, why so low? They start telling you the bad stuff. They're like, damn it, I don't like how expensive it is, right? You don't want them to tell you the bad stuff because that's them reaffirming that in themselves as well. So you always want to say the good stuff. Want them to say the good stuff. So if they're not at a 10, you want to say, okay, so I get you're a 7, right? Do you have any questions about the program I can answer for you just to help you get closer to that 10, right? So one thing I actually do, because here's the thing about objection blocking, okay? When you answer their questions, you're partially giving them control over the call. And this is something I talk to many closers about. I'm not going to tell their names, but some closers don't like this method because they feel like you're giving too much power to the prospect. And at first I didn't understand that. I'm like, what do you mean, right? This is the best method. But as time went on, right, that is true. When you answer their questions over and over and over again without stopping, you are giving the prospect a lot of control over the conversation. And I'm not saying here to be a control freak, right? I'm not saying, oh, okay, I'm not going to ask you questions. That's all I'm going to do through the call, right? That's not what we're trying to do here. But what I'm trying to say is what I do personally is I set a strict 5 minutes for answering questions. And this is actually something Tyler suggested to me. So what I do is I actually say, okay, so I'm just going to set 5 minutes on the clock right now and just dedicate this time to answer any questions you have. And then they just hit me with the questions and I answer the questions, right? And some closers, they always think, don't answer questions, right? what's the point of answering questions, right? They just always try to redirect. And redirecting gets really annoying. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now. Redirecting gets really annoying, especially for business owners. Especially if they're asking questions like, okay, so how long is the training? Right? And then some closers who learn their skills from, I won't say who, but they would go like, okay, how long's the training? So, would it really matter if the training was 5 hours, 10 hours? Or they might say, would it really matter, would the hours of the training really matter for you in terms of making a decision? Like dumb shit like that. Like you never want to like ask questions, like redirect in those cases, right? So in those cases, you want to answer the question, right? And those cases, the term is called a buying question, right? So there's two types of questions: buying questions, mindset questions. Okay, I should probably write this somewhere, but I can't edit this. But can I edit this? Yeah, I can't edit this. So pretty much what I'm saying is there's two types of questions, right? Buying questions, mindset questions. Buying questions are questions like, okay, so how long is the course? How many hours is it, right? Or like, is this like a online thing, or is it like a, like live trainings, or is it kind of like recorded videos? Those kind of questions, right? And or if they ask you like, what's FBA? What does FBA stand for? Like those type of questions, they're just buying questions. You just answer them for it, right? You just answer them. But other type of questions, like mindset questions, you want to answer it, then put it back on the shoulders. Nope, I did not say redirect. I said answer it, put it back on the shoulders, right? So what you want to do is if they do hit you up with a mindset question, let's say, okay, so Henry, right? Like how long does it take for people to normally see success? That's a question I get all the time. Like how long does it normally take for people to get success? So what I like to say, right? Two parts. One, answering the question. Two, putting it back on them, right? So answering the question, first part. Yeah, okay, Bob, that's definitely a great question. I'm glad you asked. So in terms of how long it takes for people to see success, that really depends on the situation, because some people, they get in, they have that reason behind why they got in. They know why they're making that Amazon business. They know why they need to earn that money, right? And some people on the other side, they get in just to feel good about themselves by buying the course, and they don't do anything, right? So short answer is we have people, right, having success in 2 weeks, people having success in 1 month, people who never have success because they don't put in the work. So are you the person, this is the part where you put it back on them, right? Are you the person who's willing to put in the work and commit and implement, be a coachable student to get your Amazon business started and succeeding? Or are you the type of person to get into something just to feel good about themselves? Just straight up like that. Just maintaining that high status frame. Just doing that, right? And then, so that's the two parts, right? First, you answer the question. And for mindset questions, most of the time, you always want to say it depends, right? Depends. It's always a good answer. The politician answer, like Kevin likes to say, depends, right? And then the second part, which is putting it back on them. So would you say you are the type of person who would you be willing to commit to? Those type of phrases are what you want to use. Okay, so that's how I like to approach it. Another way is questions like, let's say, so how long has Kevin been doing this? How long has Kevin been teaching people FBA? Right, so that type of question, I like to approach it in a different way. So it's still similar to the other way. So you want to, first of all, answer the question. So, Kevin, that's definitely a great question. So Kevin has been doing this for about 3 to 4 years now, right? And the reason I say 3 to 4 is because I don't know what date he started, right? And the second part is you want to kind of assume but assume in a way where you're asking them whether your assumption is correct, right? So you want to say, okay, so, it just sounds like to me, right? It just sounds like to me that, da, da, da. So in this situation, what I would do is, I would say, yeah, so Kevin has been doing this for about 3 to 4 years now, right? And the reason I say 3 to 4 is because we don't know the date when he started. But tell me if this is true, right? It just sounds like to me that you just want to make sure that whoever you're investing your hard-earned money into, right? You just want to make sure that you're investing it into someone who's really going to be able to provide you that mentorship and guidance you need so you can actually have a successful Amazon business. Is that right? You want to say that, and then they're going to be like, yeah. So number one, you get to the core of the problem. Not Kevin, not how long Kevin has been doing this. The core of the problem is he doesn't trust that Kevin's actually going to be able to do it for him, teach him successfully, right? So you want to get to the root of the problem, right? And this is something Tyler teaches as well, right? Tyler Powers. What he would actually say after you get that affirmation from them, you would actually say something along the lines of, okay, so why is that? Why is that so important? And it might sound like a really dumb question, like, okay, duh. Obviously, learning from someone who can provide me success is important, right? Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Why is that important, right? It is a dumb question, but the reason you ask, you can still leverage it. You can go like, yeah, so the reason I asked, right, is because, there are people who learn from like scam gurus, and they still make like a ton of money. Right? So, why not work with those people? Why work with Kevin? Right? Something like that. But yeah, most of those cases, most of the time, I would suggest using putting it back on them, right? But on questions where you can't really put it back on them, like how long has Kevin been doing this for? You want to get to the root of the problem, diagnose that, and fix that. All right. Hopefully that makes sense. And if it doesn't, right, feel free to send me questions through my messenger or through my Discord. And if you guys find this to be not that clear, right, if you guys have questions, I'll make revisions to this video if necessary. All right. So this part pretty much covered most of the question answering, mindset, buying questions, 2 types of questions. And you never want to give away investment level, right? One thing I like to do is, we never give away the investment level until we find that that person is qualified. Like that. If they watch the entire webinar, they know the investment level, so they won't ask you. Okay. And that's why you only get out of people who watch the entire webinar. So also, this question, what about financially? So financially, this is a good question to ask as well, because their budget, 2 options. If they have the money, proceed. If they don't have the money, let's say you're selling Zon Ninja, 2K, right? Kevin always suggests having 3K to 5K to start your Amazon business, right? Let's say prospect only has $500 or prospect only has $100, right? So in those situations, you would downsell to agency, right? Agency is another one of Kevin's mini courses, which show people how to help others create an Amazon business. And, because they're helping other people create an Amazon business, they get a percentage of the profit the other person earns because they're helping them create that business. All right. So if they have the money, proceed with this entire process. If they don't have the money, if they're like really far from the money, then you would downsell the agency. If they're pretty close, let's say they have 1K, 1.5K, or let's say they have 2K, still want to proceed, but you want to ask them, okay, so what do you feel you can do to get the funds, right? So what I like to do is I ask them for budget, they tell me a number. I like to use some NLP here. So if I say, suppose, right, I told you that you will need an extra amount, let's say an extra $500 to get started with your Amazon business. Would you be committed to finding that capital so that you can get started? So you want to get their commitment, right? And say, yeah, you can say, okay, so what are you planning to do to get that capital? Good questions to ask as well. And here, this is, I asked this here because if you ask this over here, like, they don't know you, right? And if you ask them, what do you do for a living, in the first 30 seconds, they feel kind of awkward, they feel nervous, right? So you want to ask them here. When you build some level of rapport with them, you got some information, they've asked some questions, so they got some authority on the call. But remember, you still have the main authority. So you ask, okay, just casually ask them, okay, so what do you currently do for a living? And how much are you able to take home every month? Just casual questions, right? And this is a question you must ask, right? Because if they have a spouse, you want to make sure, the spouse, it says here, make sure the spouse or other decision makers are present, or that this person has the ability to make the decision on their own. Pretty much what that means is if the spouse is necessary, so you ask them, okay, so are you supporting anyone else, spouse, kids? And if they say, yeah, I have a wife, right? You want to say, okay, so, does your wife need to be part of the decision-making process with you for starting an Amazon business? And, if they say no, great. If they say yes, say reschedule, right? I think it'd be really useful if your wife could get on a call with us as well, because I think, she definitely has questions probably regarding Amazon. It'd be great if I can help her answer them, something like that. And sometimes you get the answer when you ask them, is your spouse going to be part of the decision-making process? They say, I'm still going to talk to my spouse about it. They're still going to go like, I'm just going to tell my spouse about it, but, she doesn't really have a decision based on whether, I'm going to do this or not. So in that case, you just want to confirm with them. Okay, so you're saying that, you're going to tell your spouse about it, which is fine, right? But, she's not going to have any, power, let's just say power over whether you decide to do this or not, whether we find whether Amazon is a good fit for you and you do decide to move forward or not. Is that right? Just confirm it with them. Yep, so that's the objection blocking section. Apologize if it took a bit long. There is not much information on the page, but there is a bunch of information, and based on my experience, I feel like are important to talk about.